I didn't know you had sleeves, bro.
And welcome back to pregame.tv. Another Friday without our good pal Marco D'Angelo, which means only one thing: more shenanigans with VR Vegas Runner. VR, what is up, my brother?
Never better, never better.
You are a piece of work. I mean, I watch you on the early videos, you and Fezzik and Leonard. If that's not reality TV, it's waiting to happen. You got the straight guy in Leonard. You got Fezzik that goes off about 9 different things
at the same simultaneously.
And he's the only one following them all. And then there's you go off in your own tangent. So makes for good early week stuff. And now I got you here delirious on a Friday night.
Yeah,
recording for UFC coming up tomorrow.
Absolutely.
UFC 8 on Fox, starting off with 2 prelims on Facebook. Then they'll go to FX. And then they'll go on to Fox. I love when Dana does the free stuff.
Yeah, you got to love it. I mean, the deal with Fox was huge. I mean, UFC MMA was already mainstream.
Right.
But that just took it to a whole other level. Because prior to the Fox deal, I mean, you had to have that monthly pay-per-view and the occasional card on Spike. Otherwise, you couldn't really get your MMA fix. I mean, to really hit the non-fight fans. With Fox deal, now all of a sudden, here you are 8 cards later, and it's just opened it up to an entirely new market. The one thing I want to say about the Fox cards that I've really noticed in particular is they're built to showcase certain fighters. Because of that, you have to be cautious. As the card gradually goes towards the main event, co-main event, there's not as much value in the dogs as there may be in a pay-per-view event. Okay. Because the whole idea, the whole premise is to showcase its stars.
To get you to buy the pay-per-view.
Granted, exactly. Granted, you want to have competitive fights. Right. But at the end of the day, it's to put a name out there. So you got to be cautious finding value. But early on, in the undercard Facebook fights, like you mentioned, there is some. And actually, Lou gave out Aaron Riley plus 200, who's returning to the UFC, and I like that one. I think there's value there. Plus 200.
That, Louis D's my boy.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to what he says. He knows his MMA, and he, you know, especially the UFC. So he gave out Aaron Riley. I like a favorite in the undercard. I like Ed Herman in his fight with Trevor Smith. And to me, this is simple. I'm not talking conspiracy or anything like that, but if you're following MMA of late, and if you're following the UFC since they bought Strikeforce, you're starting to see the weeding out of a lot of Strikeforce fighters. And it just makes business sense for that to happen. And what they're putting them in are a lot of fights where maybe it's not in their best benefit. You know, like maybe they're fighting an opponent who dominates them in an area they're weakest. I'm seeing a lot of that. Gotcha. You have a fighter in Trevor Smith who's coming in off 2 straight Strikeforce losses. They're setting him up here to fight Ed Herman, get his loss, and get cut. No contract. I mean, that's what this fight has the makings of.
So on the other hand, though, if Smith is able to pull off the win against Herman because he's so-called going up in class, he's got a chance to stick around.
Yeah, exactly. But I think they make it, and that has happened. But it's kind of like they stack the deck against these guys in a lot of situations. And in this particular fight, the deck stacked extremely difficult against them. And here's why. When you look at Herman, anywhere this fight goes, he'll be able to dominate Smith. If you look at the stand-up, he lands 1.5 strikes more per minute. If you look at the defense in the striking, he avoids 42% of strikes compared to Smith, who only avoids 26%. So he gets hit 3 out of every 4 times someone throws a punch or a kick at him. That's awful. And in the UFC, where you're fighting guys at that level, at that class, if you're going to get hit that much, you're not going to win too many fights. If this fight goes to the ground, again, you got to give the advantage to Herman. Not only does he average more submissions per 15 minutes, but if you look at the takedown attempts, Smith succeeds on only 27% of his takedown attempts, which is horrific compared to Herman, who succeeds on over half of his. When you look at takedown defense, Herman avoids 63% of takedown attempts. Smith avoids only 44%. So Ed Herman could take him down if he wants. He could outstrike him if he wants. Anywhere this fight goes, he'll be able to dominate Smith. The only way I see Herman losing this fight is if he gets caught flush. And if you're going to be banking on that, you got to get better than plus 180 if that's your only shot. So for me, I made my true line minus 350 on Ed Herman before I even saw the line.
When you see it,
when I saw it at minus 230, to me, that's a no-brainer. I mean, if I would have came out with a line of minus 700 and they had minus 500, I'd be running, diving into my car and driving to the casino.
And the value doesn't always have to be on the
It doesn't matter to me. My value comes on what my price is compared to what they're offering. It's irrelevant. To me, I look at it like the stock market. Google's expensive. We know that. You're not getting it for $50 a share. But if you could get it for $400 a share, you're going to buy it.
Right.
If you got to pay $1,000 a share, obviously you're not going to buy it. It's still a great company, but you're not going to buy it. But for me, that's how I approach sports betting. I'll lay $1,000. I don't care. If I know the line should be minus 1,500, I'll do it with a smile. And I think that's what separates professional bettors from recreational bettors, because the recreational bettor looks at that and says, no, I'm going to put up $100 to win 10. No way. But if you think you should have to be putting up 2 to win 10, then you got to make that bet every time.
You got to do it. Okay, as my good pal Marco D'Angelo says, we've got VR here, Vegas runner, UFC on Fox 8. Make it official, pal.
All right, I'm going to go straight to the favorite, Ed Short Fuse Herman, minus the 230 over Trevor Smith. Smith coming in off 2 straight losses. This is his first time inside the octagon. He's a Strikeforce fighter coming off losses. We've been seeing the UFC, Joe Silva, matchmaker, slowly weeding these guys out, and I think it's Trevor Smith's time to get the pink slip. Look for Ed Herman to continue his winning ways. He's 3-1-1 his last 5 times fighting under the UFC banner. I think he gets the win wherever this fight goes. Herman's going to have the advantage, whether it stays striking, whether it hits the mat, whether it's one of those dirty boxing up against the cage. Anywhere this fight goes, it's Herman's to win. So for me, I got to bet Short Fuse. I got to lay the 230. And go ahead and look at Aaron Riley at plus 200. There's some value there. He returns to the UFC, and I think he's going to have a great showing come Saturday night.
Sounds good, VR.
Let's do it.
One thing I'll tell you with VR, it's a value play. His money will be there. His money is always worth it.
Yeah. I back my opinion up with money.
There is no doubt. All right, that is a future play for tomorrow on UFC Fox 8. Take Mr. Ed Herman over Trevor Smith. Looks like or sounds like a good deal. Between VR and Louis D'Andrilli, I just listen to the guys. They know the sport inside out. I just make money. I'm just there, victim of circumstances. It's not too bad. All right, we're going to be back with a future play. And don't forget to check the future plays out. There's a bunch of them. College football, NFL, win totals, all this good stuff. Now, VR gave an AFC representative that he liked. He gave an NFC representative. He's got his long shot play. You'll find that on the futures on right here on Vegas.tv.
Pregame.
Yeah, you got to cut that. I'm like, all of a sudden, I just went blank over there.
Who cares?
Pregame.tv. Ken Thomson, VR. We'll be back.
Who cares?
God, man,